나미노비스. 마나마토 줄어나면.
Sanawato?
Over the years, I've watched a lot of isekai. I've seen NEETs reincarnated into fantasy worlds, demon lords travel to ours, and everything in between. And after each new series, I've attempted to answer a simple question. Would I live there if given the choice? It's such a simple question, but you'd find that it's much more challenging to answer than you'd guess. I don't know about you, but I'm not a tactician like Shiro, a genius with code like Earnesty, or a hardcore gamer like Ainz. I'm just your average guy, so odds are I wouldn't be the protagonist of any story. I wouldn't get plot armor or the ability to surpass my limits. I'd be dead on the side of a road somewhere, getting my skull pounded by some kind of fantasy tortoise. I'm sure of that fact because each and every one of these worlds requires a very specific kind of person, and I'm not that guy. Or at least that's what I thought until I had a chance to sit down and experience the absolute joy that is Bofuri. Anyway, with that brief moment of introspection aside, my name is Luckless. I think a bit too hard so that you don't have to, and this is Bofuri, a world worth living in. Bofuri, I Don't Want to Get Hurt, So I'll Max Out My Defense, began as a web novel back in 2016 and has since gone on to release 15 light novel volumes, a 6-volume manga, and a 12-episode anime with the second season that began airing on January 11th, 2023. The series follows a young girl named Kaide as she delves into a VR MMORPG called New World Online under the name Maple. As somewhat of a novice when it comes to games, Maple, in an attempt to keep herself from getting hurt, allocates all of her available skill points into her defense stat, just continuing the trend with isekai giving away their entire plot with the title alone. This is when my infatuation with this world begins. Maple makes a decision that most believe to be incredibly naive, but it's almost as if this world respects the play, rewarding her choice of an unconventional playstyle with the skills that would eventually lead her down the path of godhood. But it's not like she's just given cheat skills. No, Maple's power more often than not is derived from her innate sense of curiosity and naivete. Because she lacks the knowledge of a veteran gamer, she is then able to challenge the bounds of what is truly possible. For instance, in episode 1, Defense and First Battle, Kuromu and Iz tell Maple about a dungeon known as the Poison Dragon's Labyrinth, expecting her to find a group to take on the challenge. Little did they know, Maple lacked the foundational knowledge of MMOs and would go off to the labyrinth solo. Maple slowly makes her way through the slime-infested dungeon, only to come face to face with the dragon lurking within. When facing off against the Hydra, Maple's curiosity, perseverance, and lack of equipment leads her to just stand there and soak up all the damage. This, combined with a few health potions, gains her the complete poison immunity skill. To take things even further, she then decides to consume the Hydra one bite at a time. That's a baller move, by the way. Once the Hydra is felled and bursts into an array of purple shapes, Maple finds that she's not only acquired a unique set of gear, but due to her unorthodox means of slaying the Hydra, she also gained the ability to use the creature's poison magic. This experience then becomes the foundation on which she builds a completely unique playstyle. The next episode finds Maple chowing down on yet another monster, gaining her the Devour and Bomb Eater skills, as well as participating in New World Online's first event, in which players face off against one another in hopes of gaining points in a fantasy free-for-all. Just as an aside, I love the death and travel animations in this series. Creatures and players alike dissolving into a colorful array of building blocks only to be reassembled elsewhere. It's just chef's kiss. Back to the first event, where Maple continues her adorable antics, drawing some borderline Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D shit in the dirt while waiting for players to challenge her like the raid boss that she is. The first of which is this Sword Art Online looking mofo who monologues for a solid 30 minutes before literally being devoured by Maple's shield. But he's only the first of many to be consumed by Maple's unforgiving abilities. There's also the Assassins 3 here who for some reason don't really understand the idea of a surprise attack. Also, these squishy little turds and this poster child for natural male enhancement. Also, did those people just kill themselves? What the fuck? Needless to say, Maple cements herself as a walking disaster to this game's player base as she slaughters upwards of 2,000 people and takes third in the event. God, I just love how much this series mixes incredibly wholesome moments like falling asleep in the middle of a monster farm with those of complete power fantasy. It's so good. And we haven't even met my favorite character yet, the absolute Giga Chad that is Sally. Riza, aka Sally, is the person who got Maple into New World Online and is the deuteragonist of this story. Introduced halfway into episode 2, Defense and Friends, Sally is the antithesis to Maple. Where Maple unknowingly created a powerhouse build, Sally combines years of knowledge and real-world skill to craft a flawless dualist. This is perfectly showcased when helping Maple collect scales for her new shield. Sally solos an underwater dungeon. Immediately, the difference in the two's playstyles are evident, as Sally deftly dodges attack after attack while actively pursuing the dungeon boss. This is also where I need to bring up the visuals in this fight and series in general. Watching as Sally figuratively stares down the barrel of a loaded gun, the light of the Leviathan's beam reflecting off her eyes just before she dodges, as well as the swirling green chakram of the wind cutter spell slicing through the water and severing the boss's head, it's just chef's kiss. God, I'm gonna be doing that so much in this video. After clearing the Leviathan, Sally gets this dope fit, as well as some new skills. And the episode is capped off perfectly with not only the announcement that the second level of the game will be opening up, but also the possibility that there will be future events. Episode 3, Defense in Second Level, begins with Maple and Sally discussing the most recent update to New World Online, or more specifically, how Maple just got nerfed. This is the first time that the developers of this game are brought up, but they soon become mainstays as periodically we get to see how they react to Maple's continued growth. I love these segments as the closest thing we get to gods in this world whine incessantly about how Maple continues to stumble onto more power. Later in the episode, we follow Maple and Sally as they delve into a haunted forest in hopes of a quest that's said to give the super speed skill. I love this as it's not only a chance for some cute and wholesome character moments between Maple and Sally, but also because it expands on New World Online's magic system, showing the audience that there are more ways to obtain powerful skills than just defeating dungeons or winning events. Later in this episode, Maple and Sally attempt to tackle the dungeon that should lead them to the second level. Much of this dungeon is uneventful, just a few boar and what is clearly a budget Ursa ring. Or at least that is until Maple and Sally make their way into the boss room, where a writhing mass of vines and thick roots coalesce to form a hulking stag. Not only is the design of this creature awesome, but the fight itself is so well paced. Not a single second is wasted on exposition, just perfect, unadulterated fantasy goodness. Not to mention the fact that my girl Sally schools this punk-ass deer, pulling out some dope moves that would rival any battle manga. Once on the second level, Maple and Sally meet up with Iz and retrieve a shield that they requisition from her. Honestly, I have no idea why she had this shield made. As far as I can remember, she only uses this for a portion of the second event, but whatever. So that was obviously a line from my original script. Someone in the comments of the video told me that in the light novel she uses it a lot more, but because of budgetary reasons, they didn't include it in the anime. The episode is capped off with an adorable dinner, not just below the night sky, but of the night sky, as their cups are filled to the brim with the cosmos itself. It's that level of creativity that makes Bofuri such a memorable series. Sure, it could skate by on its over-the-top fights or its adorable characters, but this series, like Maple herself, dares to go further and attain something greater than the sum of its parts. Finally, let's talk about episode 4, Defense and Second Event, during which Maple and Sally team up for, you guessed it, the second event. The goal here is to collect medals by solving puzzles and clearing dungeons, among other things. I wanted to talk about this episode in particular for 4 reasons. The first of which is that Silverwing is really the only monster in the entire series that uses anything close to Ari Fuerta levels of CG. Bro looks like he's from Pokemon Sword and Shield, and that was not a compliment. The second reason I wanted to bring up this fight with the aforementioned CG pigeon is that it's really the first time we get to see Maple and Sally's teamwork really showcased. Sally took on the Leviathan solo, and Maple was knocked out during the fight with the stag, so Silverwing is our only glance so far into how the two really work as a team. Also, there are parts of this fight where Silverwing isn't CG, like when Sally and Maple combine both Torrent and Hydra to create a swirling mass of poison, and it looks pretty damn good. So it just goes to show that the problem isn't with Silverwing's design. So something else is causing it to look so damn ugly. I guess we'll never know. The third reason this episode really stands out is we get to see the developers of New World Online as they react to Maple and Sally's defeat of Silverwing. The exposition of this scene is so blatant, but coming from a bunch of disgruntled developers makes it so much more palatable. Not to mention that these segments almost break the fourth wall in some small way, letting the audience know that these fictitious developers understand that what Maple accomplishes shouldn't be possible. And last but certainly not least, this is the episode that introduces my boy Syrup, and I love me some turtles. God damn if that's not the cutest thing I've ever seen. Homie just hangs there in place after killing shit like some kind of Looney Tunes character, and I don't even care. The world of Bofuri is filled with amazing sights, fights, and troglodytes. With each episode that goes by, I'm pulled further and further into its wonders. But these are just a small part of what makes this story so amazing. To cover that, we have to double back to the question I asked at the beginning of this video. Would I live in this world? To which I'd have to answer an absolute resounding yes, but not for its beauty or its breadth of choices. So far, the only characters I've talked about in this video are Maple and Sally, which does make sense as they are the protagonist and deuteragonist of this story, and they'd actually suffice to make my point. But instead, I want to talk about Kanade. Kanade is a young boy, first introduced in episode 5, Defense and Spoils of War. The crux of his character is based on his love of puzzles. Just like Maple's fear of getting hurt, the thing that drives Kanade is pretty simple, but he's rewarded for pursuing it nonetheless. During the second event, he spent 5 days working on a puzzle, after which he was given an amazing staff that meshes incredibly well with his more tactical playstyle, as it gives him random skills each day, allowing him to widen his knowledge base. This is later bolstered as he acquires yet another staff with the ability to stash skills and magic spells for later use. So not only can he store some of the random skills that he receives each day, but the ability also cuts out lengthy incantations and cast times, thus making him a veritable Gatling gun. And that's not even taking into account the plethora of utility spells at his disposal. Each of these amazing items is given to Kanade as a reward for solving puzzles. So once again, we're shown that those who follow their passions in New World Online achieve amazing feats. The same can be said for characters like Iz or Marks. Both of them pursue a niche specialization, with Iz being a crafter and Marks seemingly focused on traps, but they both become incredibly powerful because of it. In episode 8, Defense and Third Event, Marks is shown to have wiped out an entire herd of cows with his explosive traps. This is then followed up with episode 10, Defense and Attack, and episode 11, Defense and Mighty Foe, as he and Misery halt Maple's advance, buying time for Mi's arrival and subsequently forcing Maple to pull out some of her most powerful skills, something that very few people manage to accomplish. This third event is also where Iz gets her chance to shine. While we were introduced to Iz all the way back in the first episode, she rarely gets pulled off the shelf outside of a few appearances here and there. That is until she joins the Maple Tree Guild. Not only does she use all of her crafting abilities to gear up her guildmates before the third event, but she also is shown to be quite the combatant herself as she joins Kuromu and Kasumi in defending their orb. Throughout Bofuri's first season, we're shown time and time again that this world rewards those who pick the road less traveled. That, combined with the amazing variety of skills, creature designs, and character moments, is the reason I can say without the shadow of a doubt that this world is worth living in. Not to say that this series is flawless by any means. Mai and Yui, for instance, are incredibly underdeveloped for characters who basically followed Maple's example by maxing out their strength instead of vitality. You'd think that given that fact, they'd have a chance to showcase their abilities, but outside of destroying a few obstacles in episode 10 and putting up a good fight against Dread, they're really never given a chance to shine. There's also the issue of the messages exchanged at the end of each episode. Don't get me wrong, I love their inclusion. It's fun to see how the community of New World Online reacts to Maple's antics. In contrast to the developer's constant battle with her growing abilities, the wider community is just in awe of them. But the messages just scroll by too goddamn fast. I know I'm just a little dum-dum who can barely read 100 words per minute, but come on, this is some Olympic level shit. All in all, I hold Bofuri an incredibly high standing. It's much more than just a visually stunning watch. It's the perfect example of making power fantasy fun by combining earned feats with adorable character moments. And this is something that cannot be understated. Lately, we've seen show after show picked up for a mere 12 episodes, forcing them to take on this Herculean task to make cuts, which inevitably leads to power feeling unearned or or once lovable characters losing their luster. But Bofuri bucks that trend by packing these precious few episodes with so many wholesome moments and enjoyable training sequences that we, the audience, are left feeling satisfied. Sure, the show, like many before it, has issues that could have been solved with a bit more runtime, but those will hopefully be resolved in season 2. Yet, that's sadly a question for another video. So have you seen Bofuri? If so, what did you think of it? Were you blown away by its wholesomeness, or were you left a bit underwhelmed? I'd love to chat with you in those comments down below. And while you're at it, why not hit that like button and subscribe to this channel for more great content talking about amazing anime. But as always, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I've been Luckless. Now go watch some anime.